When the young orphan Dastan is adopted by the king, he grows up to become a legendary warrior. But after a successful siege on a holy city, he finds himself framed for a royal murder he didn't commit. Now on the run, Dastan must protect a mystical dagger that has the power to reverse time and stop a traitor from rewriting history at the cost of the world. From high-octane rooftop chases and deadly assassins to a destiny written in the sands, this is one journey you don't want to miss. In the mighty empire of Persia, King Shahriman ruled alongside his brother Nizam, basing his reign on the core principles of loyalty and brotherhood. While the king had two sons who brought him great joy, the gods had a different destiny in store for him. One afternoon, in the crowded city streets, a young boy named Bis accidentally causes a Kingsguard to fall from his horse. As the guards prepare to punish the child, another boy named Dastan intervenes. He shouts for them to stop, allowing Bis to flee while he leads the guards on a chaotic chase across the rooftops. Dastan is eventually cornered, and just as a guard prepares to strike him, King Shahriman appears. Moved by the boy's immense courage and saddened to learn he is an orphan, the king decides to adopt him into the royal family. Years pass, and the Persian army reaches the outskirts of the holy city, Alamut. Prince Tus informs his brother, Prince Garsiv, and their uncle Nizam, that while the king ordered Alamut to be left in peace, the final decision now rests with him in his father's absence. As the war council gathers, Dastan is found fighting for sport among the soldiers until he is summoned to join his brothers. Nizam reveals that their finest spy has discovered Alamut is secretly selling weapons to their enemies. He insists they must strike immediately. Dastan warns that a direct assault will result in a bloodbath, but Tus ignores the warning and orders the attack for dawn. Inside the city, Princess Tamina watches as the Persian army begins its advance. On the front lines, Dastan realizes he can prevent a slaughter by infiltrating a side entrance. With the help of his loyal friend Bis, Dastan scales the massive walls and pulls his companions up behind him. Their plan is to open the city gates from the inside, but they are quickly spotted, and the alarm is sounded. While his men hold off the guards, Dastan fights his way toward the inner gate. After a fierce struggle, he secures the gate, and Bis signals the main army to charge. Seeing the Persians repositioning, Dastan notices the enemy forces shifting as well. Acting on instinct, he uses a rope and scaffolding to drop barrels of oil onto the path below, igniting them with a torch to clear the way for his brothers. As the Persian army floods the city, Princess Tamina entrusts a mysterious item to a loyal soldier, giving him a final, cryptic command. As Dastan and his brothers fight their way toward the palace, that very soldier crosses Dastan's path, carrying the secret of Alamut. Dastan engages the soldier in a swift, intense struggle. After a series of quick maneuvers, the soldier drops his cargo, and Dastan knocks him unconscious. He picks up the fallen object, discovering it is an intricately designed, beautiful dagger. Meanwhile, Nizam and the two princes storm the high tower. Princess Tamina attempts to strike Garsiv, but she is quickly restrained. Nizam demands to know the location of the secret weapon forges, but Tamina insists they are making no such things. When Dastan arrives at the tower, Tamina's eyes immediately lock onto the dagger in his belt. Later that day, as the brothers survey their victory, Tus notices the unique weapon and remarks on its craftsmanship. Their conversation is interrupted by Nizam, who announces that King Shahriman has arrived at the castle. The king is furious, sternly scolding Tus for attacking a holy city without concrete proof of treachery, warning that this reckless act will alienate their allies. Desperate to regain his father's favor, Tus promises not to rest until the evidence is found. He later finds Dastan in the streets and mentions that tunnels have been discovered beneath the city. As a gesture of gratitude for Dastan's bravery in the siege, Tus gives him the legendary regent robe of Alamut, suggesting Dastan present it to their father as a victory gift. Dastan is then tasked with escorting Tamina to the royal audience. The two share a sharp, sassy exchange before Dastan approaches his father. During a warm embrace, the king tells Dastan how much he was missed, reminding him that the bond between brothers is the sword that defends the empire. Dastan proudly presents the robe, and the king is delighted by the gesture. Tamina is then brought forward, and despite her bold, defiant words regarding the destruction of her city, the king is impressed by her spirit. He declares that she shall become Dastan's first wife. Just as the celebration begins, the mood turns to horror. King Shahriman suddenly begins to convulse in agony. Someone screams that the robe is poisoned. Garsiv rushes to help, but the fabric burns his fingers on contact. Dastan desperately calls for aid. but the king collapses. In the chaos, Garsiv points an accusing finger at Dastan, shouting for the guards to seize the man who gave the king the robe. Biss steps in to protect his friend, but is tragically killed by a spear. Tamina grabs Dastan and urges him to follow her. They leap from the palace heights to escape the guards. Dastan releases the royal horses to create a distraction and pulls Tamina onto a mount, narrowly escaping as Garsiv orders the gates to be sealed. That night, in the desert, Dastan insists he is innocent, explaining that the robe came from Tuss. Tamina points out that with the king dead, Tuss is now the one who stands to inherit the throne. She moves close to him, seemingly offering comfort and belief, but suddenly lunges for the dagger. Dastan is too quick for her, so she snatches up a sword and begins to attack him. Tamina manages to snatch the knife, but Dastan quickly disarms her. As they scramble for the weapon, Dastan's thumb accidentally presses the jewel on the hilt. Suddenly, the world blurs, and he watches time reverse before his eyes, seeing their fight play out in backward motion. Confused, he releases the button, only for Tamina to slash his arm in the present. He presses it again, reversing time once more to undo the injury. When the vision ends, Dastan warns her that he will break her arm if she tries it again, but he is visibly shaken. He realizes he has used up the glowing sand within the dagger and has uncovered its true, terrifying power. Dastan finally understands the truth. The invasion of Alamut was never about weapons. It was about this dagger. He realizes that with the ability to undo mistakes, Tuss could become the most powerful ruler the world has ever known. Meanwhile, back at the palace, Tuss has doubled the bounty for Dastan's capture. Despite the risk, Dastan decides to sneak into his father's funeral to find Nizam, believing his uncle is the only person he can still trust. When Tamina realizes he plans to leave her behind in the desert, she screams in protest. Dastan can only look to the heavens, muttering a plea for the strength not to kill her himself. As they travel, Tamina explains that the dagger is useless without a specific type of sacred sand. Dastan tries to press her for the location of more sand, but she refuses to talk. Noticing a strange vial around her neck, Dastan orders her to keep moving. Exhausted, Tamina suddenly faints. When Dastan rushes to help her, she reveals it was a ruse, snatching the dagger and sprinting into the dunes. By the time Dastan catches up and wakes from a scuffle, he is surrounded by hostile men. Their leader, Sheikh Ammar, introduces him to the Mbaka, a tribe of elite knife throwers. He points out a warrior named Siso, claiming his aim is so deadly he could decapitate 3 men with a single strike. Ammar mockingly asks if there is any reason he shouldn't tell Siso to aim his next blade a little higher. The group eventually recaptures Tamina, and Ammar eyes her with a predatory interest in a business deal, much to her horror. They arrive at Ammar's headquarters, where Dastan manages to swipe the necklace containing the sacred sand from Tamina. Panicked, she reveals her true identity as the guardian of the Divine Covenant. She explains that the dagger was being smuggled to safety when Dastan stole it, and warns that its existence must remain a secret. Dastan, moved by her desperation, vows to protect it. He soon discovers that Ammar's business is actually a high-stakes ostrich racing circuit, a venture the Sheik is immensely proud of. After the races, Ammar prepares to finalize their arrangement, but he suddenly stops, realizing Dastan looks exactly like the disgraced prince wanted for the king's murder. Dastan attempts to flee, but is cornered by Siso. Ammar laughs, noting that the reward for a prince is high enough that he would trade his own mother for it. Seeing Dastan in trouble, Tamina creates a massive distraction by releasing the ostriches. As the birds cause chaos, Ammar forbids Siso from throwing his knives for fear of hitting his prize livestock. In the confusion, Dastan and Tamina manage to slip away once again. Later, they encounter a caravan headed for the king's funeral and take jobs as laborers to sneak past the royal guards. Once inside the city walls, Dastan catches sight of his uncle Nizam and insists he must get a message to him. Tamina warns that it's impossible, but Dastan scales the architecture with ease, slipping unnoticed into the carriage carrying his father's body. He tucks a secret message into Nizam's pocket and returns to Tamina, proving that for him, the impossible just takes a little more effort. Later that day, the two meet in the crowded marketplace. Dastan pulls Nizam aside, swearing his innocence and explaining that Tuss gave him the poisoned cloak. He reveals that the invasion of Alamut was a quest for power, a search for a mystical device fueled by ancient sand hidden deep beneath the city. When Nizam asks if he has the device, Dastan reaches for the dagger, only to find a nutcracker in its place. Tamina has vanished with the real weapon. As Dastan's frustration grows, he notices something chilling. Nizam's hands are heavily bandaged from burns. Nizam claims it happened while trying to help the king, but Dastan's suspicions are triggered. He asks Nizam to recount the favorite family story of how he saved the king from a lion when they were young, testing his uncle's reaction. The moment is shattered by the sound of a bowstring. Arrows rain down as Persian soldiers swarm the market. Dastan is forced to fight his way through the ambush, but as he nears an exit, his brother Garsiv blocks his path, branding him a murderer. Dastan maintains his innocence and barely escapes, leaping across rooftops while archers track his every move. He dives through a building full of commoners and disappears into the city's labyrinth. In the aftermath, Nizam poisons the Well of Brotherhood even further. He tells Prince Tuss that Dastan returned with the intent to assassinate him and take the throne. He urges Tuss to ensure Dastan does not return alive. Tuss, however, clings to the law, demanding a public trial to honor their father's legacy. Frustrated by this delay, Nizam takes matters into his own hands. He travels to a hidden lair to meet with the leader of the Hassansins, a deadly group of magical killers, and orders a hit on his own nephew. Meanwhile, Dastan finally tracks down Tamina. He warns her to stay quiet as a Persian patrol passes nearby. He explains his realization. Nizam is the traitor. The burns on his hands couldn't have come from the celebration, because Nizam never actually touched the poisoned cloak there. He must have handled it before it was ever given to the king. Dastan realizes that Nizam isn't interested in just reversing time by a few minutes. He is after something much bigger. As they wait for a massive sandstorm to pass, Tamina finally reveals the terrifying truth. She explains that long ago, the gods saw the greed of mankind and sent a great sandstorm to wipe them out. A young girl, seeing the coming destruction, offered her own life to the gods in exchange for a second chance for humanity. Moved by her purity, the gods swept the lethal sands into a massive sandglass, now buried deep beneath Alamut. The girl was given the dagger and became the first guardian. While the dagger holds only 1 minute of sand, Tamina explains the terrifying catch. If the dagger is plunged into the sandglass itself, the sands will flow endlessly, allowing someone to turn back time as far as they desire. This is strictly forbidden, for if the sandglass cracks, the god's wrath will be unleashed once more, scouring the earth clean of life. Dastan finally connects the pieces of the puzzle. He recalls the story of how Nizam saved King Shahriman from a lion during a hunt. He realizes Nizam intends to go back to that very moment, let the king die, and take the throne for himself, ruling for a lifetime. To prevent this, Tamina insists the dagger must be taken to a sacred mountain shrine and destroyed. Their journey is interrupted when a lone ostrich appears, followed by Sheikh Amar and his men. Amar is furious, explaining that the chaos Dastan and Tamina caused during their escape led to the loss of almost all his racing birds. With his business in ruins, he intends to collect the bounty on their heads. However, that night, the Hassansins catch up to them, unleashing a swarm of venomous snakes into the camp. Dastan grabs the dagger from Siso, activating it to see where the snakes will strike. In a blur of motion, he slays every serpent before they can bite. Witnessing this feat, Amar is astonished. Though he fears the assassins, Tamina's promise of temple gold, enough to fill 10 horses, is enough to convince him to help them reach the mountain. As Garsiv's scouts and the Hassansins close in, the group finally reaches the sacred village in the mountains. They find the streets littered with bodies. The Hassansins have arrived first. Tamina prepares for the ritual to return the dagger to the mountain, even though she knows the gods will likely take her life in exchange. Suddenly, Garsiv and his soldiers surround them. Dastan stands his ground, urging his brother to see the truth. Nizam is the traitor who hired the assassins. He points to the slaughtered villagers and argues that he would never have risked returning for their father's funeral if he were truly a murderer. Garsiv begins to waver, remembering how Nizam was the one most desperate to see Dastan dead. Garsiv realizes the truth. If Dastan were guilty, he would never have risked his life to speak with Nizam. He recalls Nizam's strange insistence on an immediate execution rather than a trial, realizing his uncle was desperate to silence Dastan. Just as the brothers reconcile, the Hassansins launch a brutal ambush. Garsiv is struck by metal spikes, and a chaotic battle erupts. Dastan rushes to the mountain shrine to stop Tamina, refusing to let her sacrifice her life to destroy the weapon. As they argue, a Hassansin strikes. During the struggle, a trained serpent swallows the dagger and vanishes. Dastan finds himself pinned by an assassin, but with his final breath, Garsiv intervenes to save his brother. Before passing away, Garciv charges Dastan with a final mission: save the Empire. Tamina watches in despair as the dagger is carried away. Elsewhere, the Hassansan leader retrieves the weapon from the snake and delivers it to Nizam. Sheikh Ammar and Seyso realize the gravity of the situation. Though Ammar initially mocks the idea of a suicide mission to Alamut, Seyso reminds him of the debt they owe Dastan for saving them from the snakes. They agree to help. Upon arriving at the city, they learn from Tamina's subjects that Nizam's men have breached the tunnels and are hours away from reaching the Great Sandglass. The dagger is being held in a high tower, guarded by a Hassansan master so deadly that no man can survive within 20 yards of him. Seyso calmly remarks that some men don't need to get that close. Seyso infiltrates the tower, engaging in a lethal duel of projectiles with the Guardian. Though he is gravely wounded by a spike, Seyso refuses to fall. He focuses all his remaining strength on one final throw, killing the Guardian and securing the dagger. Surrounded by Persian soldiers and unable to escape the tower, he spots Dastan and Ammar below. With his dying act, he hurls the dagger down to them. Nizam is livid when he discovers the weapon is missing. He orders a city-wide manhunt, but the soldiers are led on a wild goose chase by Sheikh Ammar, who uses himself as a distraction. Meanwhile, Dastan and Tamina slip into the palace. Nizam is eventually informed that the sandglass has been located, but he is forced to admit he no longer has the key to activate it. High above in the castle, Dastan prepares to confront his brother Tuss, hoping to finally expose the truth before Nizam can reach the heart of the mountain. Dastan orders the troops to remain outside as he confronts Tuss. He reveals that Nizam is the mastermind behind the king's murder and explains the power of the dagger and the sandglass. Tuss remains skeptical, telling Dastan that if he intends to kill him, he should get it over with. In a final, desperate act to prove the truth, Dastan removes the blade from his brother's throat, hands it to him, and tells him to press the jewel on the hilt. Dastan then stabs himself, falling to the ground. Nizam enters the room just as Dastan collapses. Tuss is devastated, but Nizam coldly dismisses Dastan as a coward who took the easy way out. Defending his brother's honor, Tuss presses the button. Time ripples and reverses, bringing Dastan back to life. As Dastan prepares to sacrifice himself again in the restored timeline, Tuss stops him, finally convinced of the truth. Realizing his plan is exposed, Nizam acts instantly, cutting Tuss's throat before Dastan can react. A Hassansan appears to pin Dastan down, allowing Nizam to seize the dagger and flee toward the tunnels. Tamina creates a distraction, allowing Dastan to kill the assassin. Examining the body, Tamina recognizes the killer as a guard from the High Temple, confirming how deeply the betrayal reached. The two rush through a secret pathway into the deep tunnels to reach the sandglass before Nizam. As they navigate the dark corridors, Dastan accidentally triggers a trap, causing the ancient structures to shift and groan. Sand begins to pour into the chambers, and Dastan is swept away, sliding down massive dunes and dodging falling debris. He eventually tumbles through a trap door, landing in the central chamber of the sandglass. The Hassansan leader is waiting for him, and a brutal duel begins. Just as a venomous snake is about to strike Dastan, Tamina arrives, grabbing the serpent and forcing it to bite the assassin instead. Dastan delivers the final blow, and the two share a brief, intense moment together. Their respite is cut short as Nizam reaches the heart of the mountain. They rush to the sandglass to intercept him, but a sudden tremor causes the ground to crumble, leaving Dastan and Tamina clinging to a ledge above the abyss. Dastan catches Tamina as she slips, but she tells him to let her go, insisting that his true destiny is to save the world. Dastan refuses to let her fall, but Tamina forces him to lose his grip, sacrificing herself to the abyss. Devastated, Dastan climbs with renewed fury, grabbing the dagger just as Nizam plunges it into the sandglass. The god's wrath begins to tear across the earth, but Dastan manages to pull the dagger out, shattering the cycle. In an instant, time ripples and snaps back. Dastan finds himself back in time, standing on the walls of Alamut, just after the city has been taken. The battle is over, and the chaos of the past few days has been erased. Knowing what is about to happen, Dastan rushes to find his brothers and his uncle. In front of the entire army, he declares that they have been deceived into attacking a holy city by the one man they trusted most, Nizam. Nizam scoffs, claiming Dastan has lost his mind from the heat of battle. But Dastan doesn't back down. He reveals that the spy who found the weapons was actually hired by Nizam to fabricate the evidence. He looks his uncle in the eye and tells him he will never be king because he lacks the heart of a ruler. Dastan turns to Tuss, pleading with him to do what is right. Tuss, sensing the truth, orders his men to find the spy immediately. Realizing he is cornered, Nizam draws his sword and attacks. Dastan skillfully defends himself, eventually pinning his uncle to the ground. Dastan tells him he had everything a man could dream of, yet his greed destroyed him. As Dastan spares his life, Nizam tries one last desperate stab, but Tuss intervenes, killing Nizam on the spot. In the aftermath, Tuss approaches Princess Tamina, begging for her forgiveness for the unjust attack on her city. To ensure peace and unite their nations, he proposes a marriage between Tamina and the man who is both her conqueror and her savior, Dastan. As a gesture of goodwill, Dastan returns the sacred dagger to her. As they walk together through the city, Tamina asks how she can possibly trust a man who just breached her walls. Dastan smiles, telling her he has found a new destiny for his life. She finds it strange that he could change so quickly, but he asks her for a chance, looking forward to the day they truly know one another. The timeline has been restored, and the Empire is safe. If you enjoyed this video, do the algorithm things. Like, sub, comment, and maybe check out the channel. It keeps the lights on and the mic warm.